Hi, this is Amanda Castillo. I'm going to get back into my part two here now of the video. I got cut off here on that last one, but just continuing on about the special senses, and we're talking about balance and equilibrium. Um, so this means, that either it depolarizes or hyperpolarizes the hair cells, depending on which direction that rotation happens. This can change the rate of action, potential generation in the axons of the vestibular nerve as well. In the vestibular nuclei, the vestibular axons will terminate at the junction of the medulla and pons. Vestibular nuclei project to the following regions of the central nervous system. It'll be the inferior parietal lobe, that is for the conscious awareness, of that head position and movement. And it'll be the cranial nerve nuclei for eye movement, that is in response to head movement. Dynamic equilibrium is known as, that sense of the motion of the head and the body. And this helps us to kind of maintain body stabilization. This sense of, balance and equilibrium is what's going to help me keep my body up and stabilized on this bike while I cross that intersection. So this is super, super critical for me to obviously stay up on my bike as I cross that intersection. I do not want to be falling in front of any cars or people. I need to get across safely, especially since it's foggy. So balance will be super important even when that visual kind of sense is down a little bit. So moving on into the last special sense that I think will apply here is acceleration. And this will be essential for moving our body forward into the intersection with this bike to officially make it across. This idea of acceleration is similar, to balance and equilibrium. It's again kind of with the body here. But at the end of the day, it does have just a tiny bit different pathway in the body, and it does utilize a little bit different part of the brain. Both the utricle and sacral are critical for detecting head tilting, just as discussed above here for when we were talking about the balance, but it's also important for linear acceleration. Both gravity and linear acceleration displace the otolithic membrane, which then bends that stereocilla and kinocilium. When bending it toward the kinocilium, it depolarizes the hair cell, and then bending it away, it hyperpolarizes it, just like with balance. Static equilibrium is, what senses that position of the head again, but also in vertical and horizontal movement of the body. So for this type of equilibrium, this will help to maintain that body posture. So obviously on a bike, body posture will be super important, kind of sitting upright and moving, accelerating forward. We will use that static equilibrium for sure moving forward. The cerebellum and spinal cord help to coordinate muscle movements that maintain balance. This movement allows that body to move forward and accelerate to get that bike into the intersection. The body's ability to move forward and accelerate itself gives it that special sense. This triggers the brain to allow movement to get out of the way and not to put the body into danger. So the four, again, special senses that I would use to kind of make it into this foggy intersection with a lot of cars and it's super busy is vision, hearing, balance, and acceleration. There's a couple here that I'm going to go over that I would not use, but I just kind of wanted to briefly go over these last couple special senses I wanted to include for you guys. I believe in this case study again that I wouldn't use smell, but I wanted to go over the basics. So the olfactory epithelium is located in the roof of the nasal cavity, and it has olfactory neurons. Each olfactory neuron is a bipolar neuron that has cilia on the expanded dendrite and axon, which together helps to form this, olfactory nerve. Receptors that are on the cilia of the olfactory neuron is what binds odorants, in turn causing the olfactory neuron to depolarize and make an action potential. Odorants bind to more than just one receptor type, and they are identified with a combination of receptors. Axons of the olfactory neurons go through the cribriform plate and terminate in the olfactory bulb. Mitral cells in the olfactory bulb send their actions out of the bulb as the olfactory tract. Once out of that, olfactory bulb, this terminates in the primary olfactory cortex and allows for that conscious awareness. Signals are sent to that limbic system again, which allows for the visceral and emotional response to these odorants. There are a variety of odor receptors, and each one reacts not to a single odor, but to a range of similarly structured odorants. So this is super cool. Obviously, our body allows for a diversity of a million different smells to be discerned. So that's super cool. On to our last special sense, taste. It's another sense again that I do not believe would help us kind of get across on this bike into the intersection. However, it's the last sense that I wanted to briefly go over. The taste buds are known as a cluster of cells on the valvate, fungiform, and folate papillae on the tongue. They have 3 types of cells, which are gustatory, basal, and supporting cells. There are 5 taste sensations, which are sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and that last one, savory, most of you know by. Every gustatory cell has a response to only one taste, and every area of the tongue is able to respond to that taste. So obviously that's like why when we're eating food, we are able to physically taste the type of food that we have with all of these sensations. Taste is, one of the chemical senses, and it is stimulated through the taste buds when they come in contact with these particular chemicals. The sense of taste can be influenced by the smell or texture of these substances, hereditary influences, our culture, and being familiar with certain taste sensations. Taste chemicals actually bind to the receptors on the microvilli of gustatory cells and depolarize the cell in a couple of ways. The depolarized gustatory cell releases neurotransmitters onto the sensory endings of neurons in the facial, glossopharyngeal, and vagus nerves. Axons that are in these 3 cranial nerves terminate into the medulla oblongata into the brainstem, and from there, their taste stimuli are able to relay information to the parietal lobe for conscious awareness and the limbic system for emotional and visceral responses. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to, give you this presentation, to work with you this semester. Has been really great. And I just wanted to go over my references here at the end. These were all great. A couple of them you provided. It was super nice to help me with this. So I appreciate it. Thanks.